Today we're going to take a look at LuxLens Apple Orchard Photoshop Actions. For this demonstration, I've selected this particular image because it's a nice little composition, and between this woman's attire, the umbrella, and the trees, I thought this had some real potential to become a really great seasonal portrait. But what I don't like about it is the colors are a bit bland, it doesn't really communicate the sense of autumn that I want to achieve, and the image is really lacking that little bit of essential drama that will make the image pop out to the viewer. So we're going to change all of that right now. Now the first thing I want to do is go ahead and open up the Apple Orchard action set and take a look at what's inside the bundle. As I scroll down, you'll see several categories of actions. You'll find quick items, general workflow, face and skin, brushes, autumn color base, filters for color images, vignettes, autumn sunbursts, autumn light leaks, black and white base, filters for black and white images, grain, and final sharpening. So I'm going to go ahead and move my Actions tab over to the right taskbar just to make a bit more room for my image. Now the first thing I want to do is apply the Histogram Fix action. This will bring a bit of balance to the lights, darks, blacks, and whites, and can also provide better exposure and contrast levels to your image. To apply it, simply select the action and press play. You'll then find a new layer has been added to your image called Histogram Fix. This layer can be treated like any other. You can toggle it on or off, or you can change the opacity. If there's an action that you apply and you decide to remove it, you simply select the layer and press delete on your keyboard. So with the action applied, you can see the changes taking place in your histogram, and already you can see how much we've improved the image with just that one click. Now the exposure looks much better, but I would still like to increase it a bit more. So I'm going to select Increase Exposure and press play. Then I'm going to come over to my layer opacity, and I'm going to turn that effect down just a bit until it's about where I would like it. Now this image has a nice subject in our foreground, but because we want to give the image a more seasonal direction, I want to really emphasize the background, especially since we'll be making some color adjustments to the foliage, so I'm going to go ahead and select Depth Contrast and apply the action. This will do exactly what the action title suggests, and will place more emphasis on our perception of spatial differences. You'll see with Depth Contrast, we've had some alterations to our shadows, and I like where that's going. So I'm going to go ahead and further that a bit more, and play the Shadow Crunch action as well. Now looking ahead to where I want to take this image, I know that I want rich color tones. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little pop to the colors, and select Saturation Increase. Finally, I want to add a little bit of atmosphere to this scene, and we're familiar with autumn being a season where we tend to see a bit of haze in the atmosphere. So I'm going to go ahead and select Add Haze. The Haze action is great for applying to both autumn-themed images as well as portraiture. So I can be pretty confident in applying this action to this particular image, but I do want to control the amount of the effect taking place. Now we're going to do a bit of work with our subject and focus primarily on her skin, eyes, and teeth. So the first thing I want to do is apply Frequency Skin Tone Evening. If you spend a lot of time learning more advanced techniques in editing portraiture, you'll probably recognize and really appreciate this action. By applying this action, it will generate a series of layers with different effects and in a particular order that would otherwise take quite a bit of work if you were creating this effect manually. What it essentially does is it allows you to even the skin tones without losing the texture of the skin. Imagine if you were to airbrush somebody's skin, but were still able to retain all of the details in that texture, such as pores or subtle wrinkles. This action allows you to accomplish exactly that, and it's a need-to-know technique in portraiture if you're processing through Photoshop. But because we have the action here at our disposal, you don't need to know how to create that action. You simply need to know how to select it and press play. You'll also receive some instructions on what exactly you should do. And here it's going to tell us that we need to paint on a particular layer with a soft round brush. With a before and after look at the effect, you can see the subtle but essential changes being made. I'm also going to apply the Quick Skin Smoother, and this will soften up some of the features just a bit and give her face a more even, unifying glow than before. And again, for all the actions that I'll be painting with, I'll be using a soft round brush with various flows and opacities depending on the action. So her skin tones and balance are looking pretty good now, so I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to focus on her eyes and play the eye whitening action. In many photographs, the white in a person's eyes can come out looking just a bit blue or gray, and we're going to fix that right now. When you look at people, we tend to look into their eyes. This means that a little bit of change can go a really long way, because we're accustomed to looking at these eyes and we're kind of experts at what exactly a realistic eye would look like. So I'm going to apply this effect, but I'm also going to control it by bringing it down and keep it as subtle and natural as possible. And that's looking pretty good right about there. So now we've improved the eyes, so let's go ahead and work on these teeth. So I'm going to go ahead and select the teeth whitening action and press play. Now teeth whitening is an absolute must in portraiture today. Here you don't need to be quite as concerned with making the teeth too white like you would with eyes. With the teeth whitening action, this process is as simple as painting onto your image. Again, here I'm using a soft round brush, and I'm making sure that all my brush strokes stay inside the boundaries between the teeth and the gums. And there we go, before and after. A huge difference. Now the next action is one of my favorites, and this will completely change the feel of the image from one season to the next, and that is Foliage. With this action, I can now come in with my brush and I can change any of these green trees in the background to a different color. As I paint over all of these green tones in the trees, they all turn to orange. And this is another one of those essential actions if you're going to be shooting seasonal photography, or if you want to get really creative with the colors in any landscape photography. So here's the before, and here's the after. And you can see that the immediate impression the photograph now provides has been completely overhauled for something more in tune with an autumn aesthetic. Okay, so now we're really going to start playing around with these colors a bit, and then I'm going to add some lighting effects just to top it all off. So I'm going to select the soft cinnamon action, and I'm going to decrease the opacity to about 30 or so. Now the beauty of these actions is that you can stack them, one on top of another, just like you would with any layer, and you can create a really impactful color effect. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a couple of these. I'll do the same with Autumn Evening, and I'll bring that opacity down to about 30 as well. Then I'll apply Soft Romantic Light, and I think I'll bring that down to maybe about 20. And I think I'll go ahead and also apply the Add Pastel filter. Okay, so I like the general color effect happening here, but I want to add just one more thing, and that's a warm vignette. In our vignette category, you'll see that there are more options in your basic black and white borders. Here you can select a vignette that will express a sense of light and warmth, rather than just a simple way to focus the viewer's attention toward the center, which is exactly what we want for this image. Now we've brought more light and color in with our actions, but I really want there to be a bit of a light source coming from the background. The golden sunburst action will give me exactly that. This is essentially a ball of light that you can control through transformation and position, but also through its opacity. So I'm going to take this ball of light and I'm going to establish a light source in my image to add a bit more drama. Once I find the position that I'm looking for, I'll use my brush to cover up any of the glare over my subject that might be too distracting or imposing. I'll also adjust my opacity to my liking, and so I'll probably bring that down just a little bit so it's not too overwhelming. So with what we've done here, you can see that we have these warmer color tones, and I really like how they're communicating with this really fantastic blue in the skirt. So I'm going to bring all of those together with the fire and ice light leak. You can get a pretty dramatic effect out of this, but I want mine to be more subtle, and that's just because that's my taste. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that opacity down to probably as low as about 10. And I really think that does a pretty good job at topping off this image, so I'm going to go ahead and put all of my layers into a group real quick, and we're going to take a look at the before and after, from where we started to what we've achieved with the Apple Orchard action set. So here's our before, and here's our after. We started with what seemed like a pretty decent photograph, but we've ended up with an image that communicates mood and drama in a very professional and flattering presentation. Now, seeing what I've done and applying just a few of these actions to my image, you can see why I'm pretty confident when I present my client with the final product. So there you go, a pretty quick tour and demonstration of the Luxe Lens Apple Orchard Autumn Collection. I hope you try it out for yourself. Bye now.